Good afternoon, everyone. It's our immense pleasure to have with us Dr. Shivkumar Raddar with us. Sir is Associate Professor and Head of Veterinary and Animal Husbandry Extension Education, Veterinary College, uh,
Gadak.
Karnataka. And the topic chosen by our esteemed guest is livelihood-led extension approaches for sustainable development. Sir, you are audible as well as visible. You can also share your presentation and then you can start, sir.
Thank you, Majid ji.
Thank you, sir. Let's start. And if you want to interact, you can interact with the people right now, or you can directly go to PPT,
Yeah,
whatever is feasible.
right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Myself, Dr. Shivkumar K. Redder, working as Associate Professor and Head at Department of Veterinary and Animal Husbandry Extension Education, Veterinary College, Gadag, which is a constituent of Karnataka Veterinary University. I hope you are all fine, in good health and sound spirit, especially in these critical hours of COVID-19, and it gives me immense pleasure in delivering my resource note on the occasion of this 21 days National Faculty Development Program on reorienting extension education and advisory services for sustainable development of farming community. In this series, I am going to present my note on livelihoods-led extension approaches for sustainable development. I am an alumnus of Veterinary College Bidar in BVSC, and I am also alumnus of prestigious Indian Veterinary Research Institute, Izzat Nagar, Bareilly, for my masteral and doctoral studies. My main area of focus has been, since my master's time itself, it has been on livelihoods, study of livelihoods and how they impact our transfer of technology attempts. So in that series, I have taken up this topic for presentation today. Hope you can see my presentation. Livelihoods-led extension approaches for sustainable development. This phrase has got mainly three items. One is livelihoods, another is extension approaches, and third one is sustainable development. We have developed various extension approaches for development of standard of living of people, especially farmers, involved in agriculture and allied activities. We want to raise the standard of living of farmers through increased production and enhancing their quality of family living. We want to secure their livelihoods. We want to develop their livelihoods through extension approaches. When we are undertaking many extension approaches through transfer of technologies or any other educative methods, it has led to development, but many times that development has been an imbalanced development that is leading to depletion of various vital resources, whether social resources, genetic resources, environmental resources, etc. So in order to prevent that, United Nations, since long time, it has started advocating a concept called sustainable development. So what we need to do now, we need to undertake our extension approaches for enhancing the quality of our livelihoods of our people, which will result in not only development, it should result in sustainable development. If we happen to see the development scenario in our country got independence in 1947. That time, country was facing severe shortage of food. Education level was very less. Adoption of newer technology in farming was at a very low level. So in order to fulfill basic needs and also in order to undertake the country on the path of development, we undertook various development programs, starting from community development program, then intensive agriculture area development program, intensive agriculture district program, intensive cattle development program, Operation Flood, Green Revolution, SGSY, NREGP, so many development programs were undertaken. On the parallel, extension education has served as a supporting instrument for effective implementation of all these programs, so that the benefits of development programs and benefits of researches, benefits of novel technologies and farm innovations reach the people. So, extension education primarily focused upon transfer of technology, farm modernization, adoption of new tools and techniques in agriculture and allied fields. Allied fields means we all know agriculture coupled with animal husbandry, beekeeping, fisheries, horticulture, home science, etc. What happened when we embarked on this path of development? Like for example, we undertook IIAP in 1960s. We focused on the richly endowed areas. No doubt it resulted in increasing the production, but it also resulted in regional imbalances, class imbalance, etc. This is not only the result of IIAP, but many other programs alongside. So in order to reduce these regional imbalances, our planners designed some other programs like area specific programs, clientele specific program, etc. These programs were undertaken to reverse the imbalances. To reverse on the one side, we wanted to bring the development. Those developmental efforts resulted in imbalance. In order to, we wanted to reduce these imbalances. What for all these things were done? All these attempts were done mainly to see that our developmental efforts, the benefits of this development will also be available to the future generation along with the present generation. So when we talk about this, future generation should also be accessible to the fruits of the development. That's what we mean by sustainable development. We need to see, main question is whose perspectives matter. For whom we are doing that? Many times we feel that we are doing a lot of effort for farmers. But thing is that, are we doing it from the farmer's perspective, or are we doing it for our own or government's perspective? So in this context, this lecture has been devised with two important components. One thing is why livelihoods are important in extension education, and what are different approaches for livelihoods-led extension education. Can somebody tell me you are able to see my presentation and listen to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Now let us see why livelihoods are important in extension education. Even though in my title that education term is not there, I would like to use a term coupled together. Not only extension, it is extension education. Actually, many times we say, we are educating the farmers, but farmers are not listening. We are putting for so much of efforts, but farmers are not cooperative. We are telling so many good things to people, and they are not listening. Many times we, the scientists, we, the extension educationists, including myself as a veterinary doctor, we quite often blame the farmers. They are not listening to us. We are trying to do it for their betterment. They are not listening. But actually, deeply, if you try to understand, whatever efforts, if you want to conduct a training program, what for we are conducting on majority of the occasions, it is to fulfill our targets, it is to fulfill our scorecards, it is to find out new career opportunities for us. We conduct training programs, demonstrations, etc. Maybe on few occasions, we have devised our extension efforts from the perspective of the farmers. But otherwise, many times we are undertaking extension education activities mainly from that extension agency perspective. The extension agency may be a veterinary hospital, agricultural officer, agriculture university, ICAR, or Department of Agriculture, Animal Husbandry, etc. So we are undertaking these extension activities mainly from our own extension agency perspectives. But we have to remember the focus of extension education is to bring the desirable change in the behavior of people. Thereby, they adopt improved farming skills so that their livelihoods are improved. So in this context, we have to keep the livelihoods of farmers at the center stage rather than some other criteria like the targets fixed for us or our organization or our own, the knowledge what we are obtaining in BSc Agri or BVSc or BFSc degree programs. What we do, we are having this knowledge, we want the farmers to adopt it. Because we are having knowledge, we want the farmers to adopt it. That is different. Because farmers' livelihoods can be strengthened with this approach, for that we undertake extension education approach efforts. That's a different scenario. So we need to have the livelihoods of farmers at the center stage. From there we have to begin our extension education. When we talk about livelihood systems, livelihoods of farmers, it's not so simple as it appears. Livelihoods of our farmers as well, it's not so simple. It's a complex whole. It's a complex whole. Many factors play and interplay role in this. That is why understanding each factor of livelihood systems in isolation is not sufficient. We need to have a holistic approach. Another justification why we need to have livelihoods in center stage, as we have studied diffusion and adoption process, one of the primary element in this diffusion and adoption process is the social system. Social system, it is not only the economic status of people, it is not only the culture of people, it is not only their technology adoption, it is not only their political situation. Actually, it is an interrelated web of various factors that play the role. So that is why mere techno-economic profitability of technologies is not sufficient for farmers to adopt innovations. Of course, in desirable attributes of innovation, you might have seen so many factors like compatibility, trialability, etc. From that angle also, if the technology is profitable economically or technically, farmers should adopt it. No, it will not work out. Many other factors, especially emotional factors of farmers or public, socio-cultural factors, and many non-material aspects also have got an important role to play in this innovation decision process. And not only about that innovation or a technology, we need to keep in mind various consequences of these innovations as well. For that, in the forthcoming slides, I will show you some story slides. Then we will come to know why we should have foresight of consequences of innovations, especially from the livelihoods perspective. And also, if our extension education efforts should give benefit not only to the present generation, but for the future generation also, our efforts should be sustainable. If our efforts need to be sustainable, we need to keep the livelihoods of our stakeholders at the center stage. And also, friends, see various issues, global issues like climate change, economic liberalization, organic farming, quality management, etc. They are directly or indirectly affecting our farming, whether it is agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, or whatever. In the coming days, they will have a profound impact on the livelihoods of our farmers, especially poor and resource poor farmers. For that purpose, keeping in mind the livelihoods of our people, we need to undertake various extension educational efforts.
Sir, please unmute.
Sir, we are not able to hear you. Shivkumar sir.
Yes, sir, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, we have heard of this story. Story of a butterfly. See the livelihood of a butterfly. Let us see. Most of you might have heard of this story. A boy was watching a butterfly coming out of its cocoon. It was struggling so much, and the boy thought, "Arey yaar, it is struggling so much. I need to help it so that it can come out and fly." So he helped it to come out. He pulled it outside its cocoon, and after some time, the butterfly struggled and died. That boy was very curious. Why did it die even in spite of my help? And another butterfly was coming out of its cocoon. It struggled. Then ultimately it came out without anybody's help and it flew away. So what message this story has got? Of course, one famous personality has given one proverb for this. The wings of transformation are born of patience and struggle. Many times we, the development functionaries, what we think, whenever we educate the farmers, whenever we take some new technology to farmers, whenever with our knowledge we obtained in the colleges and research stations, we think that we are going to struggling farmers. Many times we will be doing this mistake of taking out the butterfly from its cocoon prematurely, thinking that we are helping that butterfly, but that butterfly will not survive. Similarly, many times we say we want to help with our technology the farmers. Many times they will cause loss or they will cause harm to the farmers instead of benefiting it. If that boy would have understood the life cycle of that butterfly, he might not have attempted that. Similarly, if we the scientists or extension personnel understand the livelihoods of the farmers, such harms, unintended harms, unknowing harms could be avoided. Now let us see another story from Panchatantra also. This also most of you might have heard too since your childhood days. A king got a monkey in the forest and he kept it as his close friend. It used to be with him always. But once some flies were disturbing the king when he was sleeping, then that monkey, what it did with an axe, to thinking that it will help the farmers, it went to hit the flies away. The intent of monkey is not bad, it is good only, to serve his master. Intent of king to keep that monkey besides him is also not bad. With so much of compassion and affection, he has kept it. But what happens here? Incomplete knowledge of the situation that may lead to dangers. The monkey, to get rid of the flies, it took the axe in its hand and wanted to hit the flies. Instead of hitting the flies, naturally, it definitely would have hurted the king. Similarly, we are seeing so many problems with the farmers. We want to serve the farmers. Because of farmers, we have got the job. Of course, most of us, we have got the job in the name of farmers to serve the farming community, whether through direct extension or through research or through teaching. All our mandates are mainly to serve the farmers, directly or indirectly. We say we want to get the farmers rid of some of their problems. For that, we are using the technology as an axe-like technologies sometimes, which will be harmful to our masters. Why this happens? This happens because of incomplete understanding of the situation. Similarly, the livelihoods of our farmers. It is not so simple as it appears. It is a complex phenomena. So in the previous slides, I was talking about stories, fictitious stories you may call. Now I will come to one scientifically recorded story in the history, that is miracle rice in Bali. Many of you people might have read it in Everett Rogers' Diffusion of Innovations book. Bali, a hill station in Indonesia, where rice cultivation is a predominant occupation. Hope you can all see to my presentation and listen to me.
Yes, sir. It is visible and it is audible, sir.
Yeah, fine, thank you. So, in Bali, in 1950s, there were traditional rice cultivation practices were going on. The hill stations were divided into some subaks, like we call them as some villages or hoblis, etc. Usually in that hill station, step cultivation used to be there. Water management system or paddy or rice cultivation from higher subaks to lower subaks was carried out in a very systematically traditional way, that is through water temple systems. Water temple systems, they used to maintain how the water has to flow from one field to another flow. At the top there used to be main temple shrine, and then after that small temple shrines, and each temple shrine used to regulate water flow to the next one. Actually, usually 2 crops used to be cultivated in a year. It was not only the water management system, even harvesting was synchronized. At what time which farmer has to harvest his crop, at what time intercropping should be conducted, at what time which field has to get the water. It was going on since centuries very smoothly. It was a concerted and symphonic cultivation practice since many centuries, undertaking rice cultivation, harvesting and following practices together, farmers at the community level. And it was catering to water requirements of all fields. Incidences of diseases were less, incidences of pests were also minimum. Then what happens? In 1951, Green Revolution rice variety was popularized in that area as an innovation, as a new technology, which could have given 3 crops per year. Scientists went there, they told them, "Arey, you are carrying your agriculture on a conventional way, you should increase it. See why you are using that seed. You use this seed instead of 2 crops, you will get 3 crops per year. Then okay, farmer listen to these people as of okay, they have scientists have come to help us, like that, thinking that they kept the scientists with their in their proximity, or they accepted the scientists and they adopted their new seed variety. Then what happened? This is a recorded history. Soon water scarcity, incidences of plant diseases, pests, etc. started occurring. Then after a few years, farmers thought this is not useful to us, rather it will harm our agriculture system. So farmers reverted to old practice of water temple management system. See the fine balance here. In the hilly areas, they continued with their traditional temple priest water management and rice cultivation systems. And in the plains, the farmers adopted hybrid varieties, intensive cultivation undertook. Both things were going simultaneously. At the development was there, sustainability was there. This is an example wherein we, the scientists or extension educationists, should be cautious about. It is not simply the techno-economic parameters. We need to understand the livelihoods of people. Would the livelihoods in a country, animals are not easily corruption. They have been so many similarly, animal country have been into the social farmers, undertake
Sir, voice is not clear, sir.
Hello, sir. Can you turn off your video, because I think your computer is suffering from bandwidth issues. Can you turn off the video? Push to Google Meet and then turn off your video. That will help in getting much clearer audio.
okay, now can you listen to me properly?
No, the voice is. Can you say something? Hello?
Am I
Sir?
audible to you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
Am I
are you
audible?
using? Yeah, you are audible, but the voice is breaking.
Please be with me for a while.
You would have to turn
Please,
off
just a couple.
camera. Have you turned off the camera in Google Meet? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Turn off the camera.
Sir, please turn off the camera.
Because it consumes much more
yeah, now it is
bandwidth.
turned off.
Yeah, please.
Hope it is.
Your voice is breaking, sir.
Am I audible? Yes, yes, please hear that. There's some signal fluctuation. Just we will wait for 1-2 minutes.
Okay. Let's go to PPT then. If you have turned off your camera, please go to the PPT, and so that we could hear you clearly. Hello, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, much better.
Yeah, right. In case of disturbance,
Let's go to PPT. You have to go to PPT again.
yeah,
Go to the slideshow and
so
start again.
this slide is visible. The PPT visible.
Sir, slides are not visible, sir. You are not presenting, sir.
Slides are not as of yet
Slides,
visible.
okay.
Can you go to the slideshow?
Yes, sir.
Same process again. Present now. Choose entire screen. Then choose the screen and
Yeah,
share.
now.
It is yet to be loaded. Yeah, loading.
Yeah. Now is that visible?
Just a second. It's loading, sir. It's not visible yet.
Is it visible now?
No, sir, not yet.
No, sir. Slides are not visible.
Yeah, yeah. Now visible. Can you press the height? Yeah, it was.
Now
Can you
just I
start
stopped
again?
that.
No,
I
you don't
stopped it
stop.
again.
It takes some time. Can you try again and wait for some time? Don't stop. Can you try again, sir? Present now and choose entire screen.
A sec, sometime.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay, sir, fine. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with me.
Please
Right.
continue.
See, that sheep and goat rearing since centuries, not since years. Since centuries, it has been an extensive system of grazing management, including migration. It provides employment and income generation to shepherds, and halting of sheep and goats on farmers' fields gives fertilizer to agricultural lands. This is important, especially in the context of many farmers nowadays not having animal in their houses to fertilize the land. And also, the sheep and goat in extensive grazing system, the incidences of diseases are less. But now, a new trend has begun: stall feeding of sheep and goats, etc. But we are seeing many farmers undertaking such stall feeding of sheep and goats. Many farms are being shut down within 3-4 years. This may be due to high cost of maintenance in stall feeding when compared to pastoral system, maybe due to higher incidences of diseases. And another thing is, usually such intensive stall feeding are started and owned by some economically rich people. These people can withstand market fluctuations and risks. Sometimes they will also be involved in threats of market manipulation as well, especially getting marketing to sheep and goat and their products. So in this context, see the disadvantages. One side is high cost of maintenance. Another problem is incidence of disease will increase. The diseases will not only be with these stall-fed animals, the disease will also spread to other extensively managed grazing animals. And because of market fluctuation, market manipulation, because one farmer, rich farmer, raises around 1,000 rams or sheep, at a time he pushes them into market. At that time, suddenly price will go down. The poor shepherds may get very less price for their sheep. So in this way, it may put traditional pastoral shepherds also into trouble. It upsets traditional pastoral shepherds disturbs good land manuring relation between shepherds and landowners, and it is newer diseases are being introduced so far unknown. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, through all this, what I mean to highlight, it is not simply the technical efficacy, it is not simply the economic efficiency of the technology we should see, rather we should keep the livelihood systems of farmers at the center stage if we want our extension education efforts to be sustainable. That means what we say to farmers, they will practice today, they will be practicing after 5 years, and after 10 years what farmers should be practicing, after 20 years what farmers should be practicing. According to that time livelihood systems, of course we cannot predict the future like astrology, but with certain scientific estimation we can think what will be in the future and how the technologies to the farmers. It depends not only for today, what will be the effect after 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and also if possible after 50 years. With some of the fictitious stories, with some of the examples, and with some of the theoretical concepts, I have tried to show why livelihoods are important in education. Of course, this is not complete. There are so many other justifications for keeping the livelihood systems, for understanding the livelihood systems of farmers in the forefront, and to undertake extension efforts from the farmers' perspective. Now, let us see how to have this livelihood-centric approach in extension education. For that, I have tried to coin this term, livelihood-led extension. That means extension should be led by livelihoods of our people. So livelihoods should lead extension efforts. So some of the approaches in this regard I am trying to highlight here. First thing is defining the livelihoods itself, livelihoods or livelihood systems. One of the definitions says livelihood systems as those things that people do to make a living. Simple definition. What people do to make a living. They are primary occupation, secondary occupation, assets, resources, human capital, social capital, etc. Of course, this is not a standard definition we can say. Many people, many organizations have tried to define livelihood systems in their own way. One of the definitions that appealed to me is livelihood system is a multi-dimensional whole, WHOLE whole, embracing all forces and constraints, material and non-material in nature, that determines a family's existence. This is one of the definitions that has been appealed to me after going through so many definitions. Of course, there are so many definitions from so many angles they have tried to define. So having this simple understanding of livelihood systems as something that is essential for family's existence, that involves some activities, that involves some networks. Some of the scientists, some personalities have tried to work keeping these livelihood systems in the forefront. In 1984, Chambers and Gildial emphasized the importance of farmers first and last approach, FFL approach. In this approach, they have highlighted beginning of agricultural research. Whenever I say agricultural research, it involves allied fields as well. Beginning of agricultural research, technology generation process, and technology transfer with holistic and interdisciplinary appraisal of farm families' resources, needs, and problems. These people have tried to put the focus on farmers, families, their resources, needs and problems. In this model, they have tried to collect the information about resources, needs and problems, conventional approaches, interviews, observation techniques, etc. Then some people have tried to understand these livelihood systems with the help of participative rural and rapid rural appraisal tools. Christoph Reed et al. In 1994, publication of International Institute of Environment and Development, London, they have tried to highlight how different PRA and RRO tools can be versatile methods in understanding interrelationships between different aspects of livelihood systems of farmers and its implications to agriculture, animal husbandry, and other rural livelihoods. Taking clue from these, I myself in 2004, with the help of these PRA and RRO tools, I was able to identify 10 livelihood patterns integrating dairy as a source of income. In these different livelihood systems, dairy as a source of income to the family had a varying degree of importance. In some families, it was a cropping dominated livelihood pattern. In some families, it was a business dominated livelihood pattern having dairy farming. In some families, it was some government job holders also, they had dairy farming. So in this way, I was able to identify 10 livelihood patterns using some of the PRA tools like historical matrices and timeline, etc. And these PRA tools not only help to understand rural livelihoods for extension activities, they also help in unearthing indigenous technical knowledge, local opportunities and potentials also for future extension activities. Then another approach, participatory learning and action approach, which is much similar to PRA and RRA. Only thing is, it also focuses not only on rural areas, it also focuses on urban areas. Then in 1991, Chambers and Conway put forth this model of sustainable livelihood framework. So in this sustainable livelihood framework, Chambers and Conway, they have tried to lay emphasis on 5 livelihood dimensions of farmers. They are physical capital, social capital, human capital, environmental capital, and financial capital. That means they try to understand the livelihoods from these 5 dimensions. Then, in the year 2000, some of the researchers, Rudy Hauger, B.N. Hiremat, etc. at Institute of Rural Management, Anand, they had developed a tool called 9 Square Mandala, a holistic tool in extension research. They had developed it from the point of agricultural technologies, appropriateness of agricultural technologies to farmers. That thing, 9 Square Mandala, it is a tool to understand the livelihood farmers with reference to technology adoption. It views the livelihood system as a whole. It gives a bird's eye view about livelihood systems of the people. It helps to illustrate the multidimensional realities of a developmental issue of technology adoption. Then I have tried to adopt this model, economics and appropriateness of agricultural technologies perspective model of 9 Square Mandala to dairy farming and livestock farmers. Hope you can see this slide of 9 Square Mandala here.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. 9 Square Mandala, it is a tool developed to understand livelihood systems of farmers from a holistic approach. Holistic approach means they want to understand individual farmers and they want to understand society of farmers. They want to understand material aspect of farmers. They want to understand non-material aspect of farmers. For what purpose? To see their adoption behavior, to see what kind of technologies are appropriate to what kind of farmers. Appropriateness of agricultural technology or animal husbandry technologies, we call it as. To understand that, 9-square mandala is one of the versatile tool. You are seeing here, friends, we have got 9 mandala before you. Actually, this concept was developed based on a village hut concept. Seeing a villager's hut, these scientists got that idea and they have developed it. See, from top to bottom as you move from aspects to somewhat abstract aspects or more of psychological aspects. Can you move from right to left of the mandala vertically, you will move from physical entities into the inner human aspects of the people. At the right bottom corner, you see mandala 1, that is a physical base. Example, in case of livestock, I have tried to adopt it for livestock farming. Similar may be adopted to agriculture, fisheries, horticulture, fields or farmers. Here, physical base at village level, there are pasture lands, village veterinary institutions, other community resources, agro-industrial byproducts for livestock, etc. At farmers level, different animals, they owned different animal husbandry systems with them. They were the physical base. Then moving to little left, knowledge and activity base. What traditional knowledge and heritage the farmers had, what new knowledge and skills they had, what indigenous technical knowledges they had, like that. And if you move to little left, further left, you have got third mandala, emotional base, affection towards animals, sense of pride about their occupation, commitment to their work, etc. When I talk about commitment to work, I give you an example. In my village, when I happened to Goa, when I used to ask the farmers, how are you? They used to say, fine. Fine means you are very comfortable economically. Then they used to say, no, sir. Then I used to ask, how you are telling you are comfortable? How you can say you are comfortable with the agriculture? Then he used to say, no, what to do? This is our, since our forefathers, this occupation has been carried, and our mother earth, if it doesn't give on 1 year, if we don't get yield on another year, we will get. That means that kind of commitment to their profession they have got, our farmers. That is emotional base. Then coming to mid mandala on the right side, mandala number 4, socio-economic space. This middle level gives space aspect. Socio-economic space means in the village, what are different institutions, how is the marketing for livestock and livestock products, etc. Including all this mandala means the list can be added or modified for that purpose. Some examples I am giving. Move to the center stage, that is family space. Number 5. It includes family composition. For example, in the family, how many elders are there, how many youngsters are there, etc. And how many people are involved in agriculture, how many people are available for cultivation, how many people are available for grazing of buffaloes or so, and their status, education status, role of different family members in various activities. Then inner human space, number 6, it includes identity of a person as a livestock farmer, awareness about importance and impact of technology adoption on health, pricing and marketing, etc. Risk-bearing ability of the farmer. These all come in inner human space. Then we will come to the topmost layer, that is depicted by orientation. Orientation means what is their vision about themselves, what is their projection to the future. Eighth side, we have got collective orientation. At village level, different laws of the government policies. Here we have tried to understand with specific reference to livestock farming. At family level, collective orientation, how far the family participates in social and economic activities in the village, etc. And then we'll come to family orientation. It includes the ancestors, their caste, their family and social occupation, economic goal, etc. One wonderful example to quote is many elder farmers, they want to continue and prosper with agriculture and animal husbandry. But their youngsters in their family, they always look to getting some job outside. If it is okay, but I don't want to come to agriculture. It is a kind of in the family. Elders want agriculture and animal husbandry to prosper, but if younger generation doesn't have that aspiration, then it is very difficult for family to adopt technology or to go for improvement in farming. Similarly, individual orientation, the farmer as an individual, what are his visions? What are his aspirations? What do he feel of himself in the society? All these things count very much in adoption of a technology. When I try to convince the farmers to go for clean milk production and increasing the quality of milk, the farmers who had more aspiration for dairy farming, who identified themselves as their self-image as a dairy farmer, they adopted immediately this technology, whereas other farmers were very reluctant and there was delay in adoption of this innovation there. That means individual visions, aspirations, self-image, they also affect the adoption of technologies or adoption of any farm innovations. So with this is about 9-square mandala as a tool to understand livelihood systems of farmers. Hope you can see my presentation. Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, fine. So now this is my last slide before summary conclusion. So besides these approaches, we have also got conventional approaches to understand livelihood systems of farmers. Like through routine surveys, we can understand livelihood systems of farmers. Through observation techniques, we can understand livelihood systems of farmers. Through focused group discussions, we can understand. Through these our conventional approaches also we can understand. But one thing what I say, the fragmented approach is not sufficient. For example, you will understand the economic status of the farmers and its correlation to adoption of technologies, that is not sufficient. Understanding the social institutions in the village and its correlation to adoption of technologies, that is not sufficient. What we need to do is, the fragmented approaches are not sufficient. We need to have a holistic approach in order to understand the livelihood systems of farmers, and we need to keep these livelihoods as a focal point or central point so that our extension efforts can be sustainable. So in conclusion, I would like to say that extension efforts, if they are needed to be effective and have sustainable impact, they need to take into account the livelihood systems of farmers, and livelihoods have to be at center stage and should be starting points to undertake any extension activities. And especially in the growing context of accessibility to mass media and social media platforms, the need is still more pronounced for farmers to accept the extension functionaries and adopt farm innovations. For this purpose also, we need to keep the livelihoods in the forefront. So our extension efforts should be led by livelihoods systems of farmers. Then we can have effective and sustainable impact in terms of technology adoption, in terms of transfer of technology, in terms of enhancing the standard of living of our people. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, if there are any questions, please ask. Participants, if there are any questions, please ask directly. Dr. Prakash, are you with us? Anybody wants to ask?
I am here, Majid ji.
Anyone asking a question, please ask.
Yeah, just you can go through the chat box also if there are any queries. Can you hear me?
There is no
Yeah.
query in the chat. Participants, do you have to ask anything, please ask. There is no query in the chat, and I don't think there are any questions pertaining to topic. Yeah, please, sir.
I thank Majid ji and Dr. Prakash Rathod and our NADCL partners and our KFSU for giving me opportunities, and also to all the participants for listening to me throughout my presentation. Thank you all.
Sir, I have to do this actually. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. On behalf of actually our all participants as well as the organizing team and my personal behalf, I would like to thank you for sharing your experiences, sir. In fact,
Can you come closer to the mic? Your audio is dropping.
Yeah, now?
No, more clearer. Can you come closer?
Yeah, this is okay.
No, there is noise.
Yeah. Anyways, actually, Majid, you can just take over then if you can just propose the vote of thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just
Okay, it can be concluded.
No, he will do the vote of thanks, sir.
Sir, since there are no questions in the chat, on behalf of the participants and on behalf of the organizing committee, would like to extend our gratitude to you, sir, for being with us. It was such a wonderful session. Unfortunately, there were some network issues, but then again, technology is like that. At times, it gives up. Anyhow, sir, it was lovely having you with us, and we're extending our gratitude to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, participants, and let's join back tomorrow at 2:30. Sorry, 11.
Thank you, sir.
Let's join tomorrow at 11.
Okay.